Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Chris Hadden here from Greenshades Software. Thanks for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be discussing the full employee lifecycle. We're going to be talking about kind of the onboarding process and some of the pitfalls around that, and some challenges that companies tend to deal with. All right, so again, just as a reminder, today we're going to be talking about the full employee lifecycle. So really, when we're talking about automating the employee experience, from hire to retire, and really that hire to retire mindset is and kind of workflow is typically how I think about the employee lifecycle. All right, so a little bit about me. My name, again, Chris Hadden, here at Greenshades Software. I've been here since 2009. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different webinars over the years, which is always a lot of fun. So I'm sure that many of you have talked with before over the years, and maybe you've attended a webinar before that I've led. So I love doing these. I love talking with our customers. I've been fortunate enough, again, over my last 13 years now that I've been at Greenshades, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of different roles over time. It's one of the great things about coming to an organization when we were quite small, and then we've had again, fortunately, a lot of growth over the years that's been really fueled by all of our customers, which is really exciting, and has been a lot of fun to be a part of. And so along with that growth, I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different roles, again, kind of spanning from sales to product development and compliance and quality assurance, and now I'm on the leadership team here at Greenshades. So I love having the opportunity to work with our customers and talking about pain points around payroll and HR. I am a certified payroll professional with the American Payroll Association, so I definitely like all the details around payroll and taxes and compliance. So the things that I find fun, fortunately, but not everybody finds those things fun. That's certainly something that we have many people at Greenshades here who enjoy that quite a bit, and that's probably why we have a lot of good solutions to help companies deal with payroll and HR and tax challenges. I do have a background in retail and fine dining within the hospitality space, and a lot of shift-based work experience. But but these days, again, really dealing with all sorts of industries across the board. So again, just a brief introduction. What we're going to be talking about today. Again, really focusing on that employee life cycle. Just as a reminder, as we're jumping into the agenda here, again, we are recording today's webinar. If you have any questions at any point, we do have some time kind of slotted at the end for the Q&A, but feel free at any point to post your question into the questions panel. Be sure to check those out, and if there's any questions that I can't get answered in today's call, I'll certainly follow up with you and make sure that we get your question fully answered. Additionally, again, the recording will be provided. If anybody needs a copy of the slides, you can access those. A PDF of the handouts are already loaded in here, so you can capture those. And then throughout, we'll have a few different poll questions. Appreciate everybody participating in that. Always, really nice to see everybody's responses and get an understanding of kind of where you're at. And as we have stated in other webinars, if you've attended webinars in the past, we really like to utilize that data to help us understand how we can improve our webinars in the future. And the same thing goes to be said for the survey at the end. So really appreciate everybody taking the time to respond to that. We review all of those surveys and, again, try to learn from that feedback and make sure that we're utilizing your time as effectively as possible. Obviously, everybody's busy, and so we appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. So, again, roadmap of where we're headed. So we're going to talk about the employee life cycle, really talking about the importance of kind of starting strong within that onboarding experience, that new hire experience. We'll do a brief product demonstration, kind of high level, touch on some key topics, and again, if anybody needs a follow up, we can follow up and dig into any particular topics you have in more detail. And then we'll be wrapping up with, again, talking a little bit more even just beyond onboarding. So before we get too deep into the discussion, I'm done talking about me, so now I get to talk about Greenshades, which I much prefer that over talking about myself. So Greenshades, again, me personally, I've been around here for 13 years now. Fantastic company to be a part of. The company started 20 years ago, So we've been around for a long time. Now we've evolved over the years, right? As we've kind of better understood what the market is really needing, and as the market has evolved, and we've evolved as an organization. So we really got our start focusing on tax compliance and frankly, kind of doing some of the hard things that some payroll systems out there just weren't really designed to handle, especially around the big push for electronic tax reporting. That's really where we got going, taking data out of accounting systems, converting it into an electronic file format that would be accepted by various tax agencies. So we started doing that. We found that we kept finding additional areas of compliance where we said, hey, we've built up the knowledge base for this. Let's jump into this, and started knocking out different key components of payroll compliance. Really got to where Greenshades was kind of solving for everything around payroll except for the core payroll processing. So we made the decision a handful of years ago at this point, made the decision to say, hey, let's wrap it up with a full payroll piece as well to fill out our payroll and HR platform to solve for those hire to retire needs within the employee lifecycle. We're focused on mid-market companies. We have companies varying in sizes, right? We have some companies with 30 employees, and we have some companies with 30,000 employees. But primarily, we're really focused on that mid-market space. Really focus on the employee engagement and making that experience as good as possible for the employee. So something that kind of naturally happened over time here is that technology has evolved, and kind of the expectation of new hires and of employees has evolved as they've been joining organizations, right? And then especially the last couple of years, as we look at the impact from COVID and sort of what that did to the working environment, and then also just what that did to technology in general. You think about just the number of people that are ordering food now, for example, that gets delivered in the middle of the night, and they're ordering it from their phone. And so it's technology is something that's so readily available at this point, and it's really changed so many things. And so at Greenshades, what we've been really focused on is saying, okay, well, these employees, that line between software they use at home for fun, social media, et cetera, that line between that and then the software that they interact with in a working capacity, we need to make that as easy as possible for that employee, and especially with the idea that, we know, and we always are keeping in mind that the employees that we have, not just at Greenshades, but the employees that our customer base have, that we're helping to ensure they get paid timely and accurately, those employees have a wide range of background, right? Some of them are super tech savvy, others, I'll just say are not tech savvy. And so we want to solve for all of that. And that being said, compliance is at the core of everything that we're doing. That's absolutely something that does differentiate Greenshades from some organizations. And that's really, again, how we got our start, because we said, hey, let's knock out these complicated compliance items that other payroll systems aren't doing. We'll supplement those payroll systems, and then eventually, we realize, hey, we can kind of do the whole thing end to end. And so not just understanding the compliance, but helping companies proactively do things to obviously avoid negative outcomes. And then again, best-in-class customer support. So that's something that's really important to us. We offer unlimited support that's always available to our clients. As far as the overall solution goes, again, hire to retire is absolutely how I think of the Greenshades platform. This highlights that a little bit here, going from payroll, right? Obviously, at our core and at the core of a payroll application, getting the employee paid is quite important, right? That's why employees go to work. We get that. We all need to get paid. So ensuring that the employees get paid timely and accurately is extremely important. In order for that to happen, there are a lot of additional things that need to happen along the way, whether that's happening in Greenshades or happening in some other system or happening on pen and paper. There's important documents that need to get collected from those employees to get them paid. There's important information that needs to get tracked about that employee, like how many hours they're working and what kind of work they're doing in order to get that employee paid. There's a lot of benefits that come along to organizations and to employees, especially right now, as we're still in a market where it's difficult to recruit talent. Really important right now to be offering things that can differentiate your company when we're in an environment where there's 2 jobs available for every 1 person looking for a job. There's a lot of competition out there. So managing those benefits for the employees, ensuring that they have, the health insurance that they need and all of that. And then of course, after you get the employee paid, there's a lot of taxes that need to be taken care of. So certainly while you're paying the employee, there's taxes that need to come out. But then also kind of after the employee gets paid, there's taxes that need to get reported to the government. And so we're helping with all of that. I would say for really the purpose of today's conversation, we're primarily focused on this payroll, HR, and benefits area, arguably with the primary concentration on HR, on human resources, as we're talking about the onboarding process, and again, simplifying that as best as possible. So I mentioned earlier, we're gonna have a poll. So we're gonna kick off our first poll at this point. Okay, so starting strong, right? So delivering an exceptional employee onboarding. Myself, it's been a while since I onboarded at Greenshades. I know that, for us, between the size of the company changing from, 15 employees or however many there were when I first started to whatever 160 employees that we're at today, just based on the size, things of our onboarding process have changed, like internally at Greenshades, but also technology has, of course, changed this so much. And so now, at this point, the onboarding process is critical. Right? I mean, we've outlined some of the things here. There's so much that goes into the onboarding process, right? There's critical documents that need to get collected from that employee. This is really like kind of your, basic things you would consider, but stuff that's really important, like filling out the I-9 and, the W-4 and ensuring that employees are offered insurance that they should be eligible, or ensuring that they're offered the correct insurance. Obviously, there's Affordable Care Act implications that come into play when you think that employee is, reasonably, you can say they're not intended to be a full-time employee, so maybe you don't offer them insurance right away, but you gotta start tracking key data to ensure that when you do need to be offering them insurance. And so there's a lot of really critical things that need to happen. But beyond just the actual collection of the documents, that's also one of the first experiences that the employee has with the organization. They're interacting with the HR team, they're interacting with the company as a whole, and they know very well that, hey, this is their first introduction to the company, and it's the opportunity to really win or lose those employees. And I think that's something that many businesses are struggling with right now, including, I haven't really talked with any business that's had any kind of good volume of onboarding that hasn't experienced this, myself included, at Greenshades, where you have new hires that come in and they don't last very long. Sometimes they're gone within a week. You barely have a chance to even begin to get them onboarded. And I think that I have seen, and certainly anecdotally, there may be more broad data to back this up, but anecdotally, I've certainly seen that just happening more than it used to be. And I can't help but think, well, the pressure of multiple jobs being available do impact that, right? Because we have the whole great, the great migration, or now I'm already forgetting the terminology, but where everybody was leaving their jobs, and so now that's settling down a little bit, but there are still a lot of employees who are in flight. And so when we have these employees that are coming into the organization, it's so hard to recruit them. Once we get them in, we want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to keep those first impressions as good as possible, so they have that experience where they say, hey, this was a nice welcoming experience for that employee. So the stakes are high, right? Getting the employee properly and completely set up for internal financial systems, i.e. payroll, that type of thing, that's very critical, as well as just other internal systems that you're dealing with, giving them access to various internal applications that you have and things such as that. So that's really important, that's critical, but also from the tax perspective. So when those employees are starting and ensuring that they're offered the appropriate tax documentation, tax withholding documents to the W-4s, for example. So ensuring that that's all set up properly, ensuring that, again, those insurance plans and the benefit programs are well understood. So having a way to accurately communicate that to the employee is very important. And then also, ideally giving them a way to not only be aware of the insurance, but also an easy way to enroll in that insurance. And then, again, trying to cut down on human error as much as possible to ensure that we're getting accurate data. So anything that can be done along the way to simplify things and reduce the chance of human error, right? Keystrokes, if you're typing something into a system. So automated approach is definitely a good path forward to help with that. Nothing's ever going to be entirely automated. There's always going to be room and need for humans to be involved. The best systems in place are going to have kind of humans anchoring those things. So it's really important for the right people to still be involved in the processes. But if you can reduce some of the just straight up kind of manual, tedious tasks that tend to be time consuming and highly error prone, then that's going to be a win for an organization. So less time spent by the HR personnel, right? Improving accuracy, so cutting down on that rekeying of data, giving the employee the opportunity to access this information in kind of a web environment or something that's accessible to them outside of just their work location, their work environment, whatever that may be, whether that's on a floor somewhere, or that's sitting in an office, or again, whatever that, or sitting at their home in that case. But having that information available to that employee to where they can discuss this with their family, for example. And again, if you're kind of introducing your employees into a system that you're using on an ongoing basis, that's going to give them a nice welcome and introduction into the same place where, in the case of the Greenshades, they're going to go to view their pay stubs. So, hey, you come here to do your first day onboarding, and the same system is where you're going to go to enroll in benefits and fill out your time cards and view your pay stubs and do various kind of ongoing maintenance that might need to happen as an employee throughout that employee life cycle. So just some challenges that we wanted to call out here, of course, based on things that we've experienced internally, feedback that we've received from customers, and things that we've ran into at other companies over the years. So just some typical challenges. I suspect many of you will be able to relate to many of these. So I mean, incomplete paperwork or dated forms, right? Just outdated kind of information, incomplete or erroneous data. So right, do we have what we actually need or not, to do the work that needs to be done? Inconsistent processes. So I mean, this is something that, depending on the size of your organization and kind of the geographically, how things are structured within your organization and the different types of employees that you may have, this may be a bigger or smaller challenge. But typically, you want to have that consistent process employee to employee. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the employee experience is going to be the same for every employee within the organization. It may be prudent to have the employee experience, the onboarding experience might be different for one type of worker or in a certain position or a certain division of the organization based on the type of work they're doing that might be different than somebody else in that organization. But those folks that are on kind of like groups, they should have a consistent onboarding experience. They should have the same employee experience. And that also makes it easier for measuring success, right? So if you make a change to your onboarding process, it's nice to be able to say, hey, we know everything else is going to be consistent. We only change this one thing. And so that way, if we see an improvement, we'll know, okay, we can most likely, attribute it to that change that we made. Then just data in general going stale. So, life changes, right? So if I'm an employee, I fill out a form, maybe it's an emergency contact form, right? And I put my information on there. Over a period of time, that emergency contact information might change. So having a way for that employee to be able to go back, find that document at a later date and say, hey, I need to update that, or giving your employees an opportunity to update that. And then again, these kind of islands of information that get created across different employee types, where you have really good information maybe in one area, but it doesn't quite naturally feed into other aspects of the portal, or other aspects of the employee record, I should say. Okay, so one more poll question here before we move on. So, do electronic tax documents get uploaded to your HR system? All right. So now we're going to flip in here and do a quick product demo. So talked a little bit about some of the challenges right, that companies have when it comes to onboarding, and talked about some of the reasons that onboarding is so important for employees. So as we're thinking again about this hire to retire life cycle for an employee, that's really what I'm hoping to spend some time on right now, just kind of talking through this a little bit within the Greenshades application. So big picture, many of you may be using Greenshades to different degrees today, or maybe you're not using Greenshades at all today. Either way, that's totally fine. But as we're looking in here in this environment, this is what maybe a payroll or HR administrator would see when they sign into Greenshades. The experience here and kind of specifically what they're going to see, it would vary depending on the modules that you choose to be licensed for, what kind of package you have, and then also from a rights perspective, security permissions based type access. So if you are in an environment where you're primarily only dealing with the benefits, for example, benefits administration for your organization, you might be set up to where when you sign in here, you might see some of this information, but not all of it, right? You might not see notifications that there's tax deadlines coming up, but you'll definitely see your benefits information on the home page, letting you know about your ACA compliance details or open enrollment that's going on right now and what kind of participation we've seen. So we have some high-level KPIs here that are, again, going to be kind of more specific to what type of user you are and what information you need to see. And of course, if you're a global administrator, you'll come in here and you'll see everything. So there's a lot, again, thinking about that slide where we showed, hey, all the different things that you can do within Greenshades, the majority of which happen here within Greenshades Online. We're focused primarily on payroll, HR, benefits, and especially the HR side as we're talking about onboarding. So as we think about that hire to retire, we have the same unified employee record throughout that entire employee experience. So once a new hire comes in to your organization, whether that data comes in from an applicant tracking system that we integrate with and it's fed through that way, or whether that data, if you're using one of the payroll systems that we integrate with, if you're not doing the payroll through Greenshades entirely, maybe we're pulling the employee data from there, or maybe you're just manually adding in the employee record. There's a variety of ways to get that employee record in here for that new hire. But as you send that new hire through the onboarding process, they will be either creating an employee record or contributing to an employee record that you've already kind of kicked off. And all this information gets stored into a kind of a centralized place. And so when I look back here on this slide, just to give you an idea, so this is the employee profile right here. This is, we got just a little kind of video going right here. So the overall employee experience, again, thinking about what this is going to look like to the employee, the first time that employee comes out to the website, you can give them an opportunity to create a login, to create an account. So they can go out and access in a self-service capacity all the information they need to on a regular basis. So as a new hire, again, whether you have any information on file for them or not, you can just share them a link and say, hey, go on out here and begin your onboarding process. We have a lot of different flexible options on kind of what information you'd want to be collecting from that employee in the onboarding process, but they'll see kind of in this recorded video right here, this is going to guide them through that process of what information they need to be completing as a new hire. And in this particular view, this video going right here, this is the mobile view. So certainly mobile accessibility is obviously very important. And so we make that available to those employees. But if you have employees that are sitting on a laptop or a desktop computer, they can absolutely access this as well. So it's very flexible in terms of how they can come out here and actually access this information. So just jumping back in here though to the live environment right here. Again, we have the core employee record that's going to be set up, but throughout this onboarding process, we can create again, guides that are going to define what that workflow is going to look like for those new hires. So I'm going to jump in here and look at those settings here just briefly, not at all going to dig into all of these settings by any means, but as we look at this, we can see, I have 3 different onboarding workflows that are set up right now. You could set up 3, you could set up 3,000, doesn't really matter. 3,000 might be a lot, but sure, 30, I don't know. You could have a lot of different workflows set up, and each of these workflows can be defined to have a different experience for those new hire. So you can specify, hey, what are the steps that you want that new hire to be guided through to ensure that you're collecting the relevant information. So certainly things like employee profile, the I-9, the direct deposit, W-4, the tax form distribution preference. So go ahead and get those employees to pre-consent to view their tax forms electronically. That'll be really handy in January when it's time to distribute the tax forms. You don't have to worry about printing one out for the employee. So there are components that are available that are kind of managed from Greenshades, but then you can also expose this to any kind of custom document that you have, company policy, procedure document, whatever it might be that you want to make available to those employees. You can just have out on the employee portal, and you can also make that required in those onboarding steps if you need to do that. So really the goal with all of that is to streamline that data collection process from that employee, to simplify it from the employee perspective, preload data where possible, have different defaults in place, right, to kind of help automate that process as much as possible, but then still have the ability to have full control of what's going on in the environment. So we can see at any point what's going on with our new hires. We can see where they're at in that onboarding stage, if they need a bump to go ahead and kind of finish up what they're doing. Once they've completed that and it's ready to be reviewed and approved, we have the chance to come in here, review all of that relevant information that new hire has provided us, and we can choose whether we wish to go ahead and approve this, or obviously if we need to edit any of this information, we can do that. But all of that information that's entered by the employee, that's going to feed right into that employee profile and start generating that full employee card. So that way we have the opportunity at any point throughout that employee's life cycle to jump in here and see exactly where that employee stands, see all their relevant history, see all their historical time cards and their pay stubs over time, and any kind of address changes they've done, any sort of certifications that they might have on file that we're tracking for them, maybe that are required for their particular role. All of this is in this centralized view, and it's all started with that, with that onboarding process. The other thing too that's worth noting here is the kind of communication that's available. So when we jump in here and we can sign into the employee portal and check all of that out, but we have the ability to build out this full message center. So if there's any kind of announcements we need to share with our employees, whether it's all employees or just an individual employee, or maybe just a group of employees, we can build that out here, which will then again allow us to really stay in touch with those employees, regardless of where they're at, whether they are remote or they're on site or anywhere in between. We can come out and still get in touch with that employee at any time. So again, just kind of giving high level overviews today. So I'm just going to jump in here quickly into the employee portal. But we can see when we sign into the employee portal, this is what that employee experience looks like. And this is going to be something, again, that can be kind of tailored and tweaked to what that employee should have access to, and kind of what components you choose to make available to that employee. And also kind of the skin here, the branding, of course, can be controlled by you, can be configured. So you can have your logo and all of that, whatever kind of color theme makes the most sense. But when that employee goes through that onboarding process, they're prompted to go ahead and create an account. And so they can come back at any point, go to the sign-in page, log in, and access this information. Again, anywhere with an internet connection, whether mobile or not, they can sign in and they can access all of this. And all of those new hire documents and all the information that's collected in that new hire process is all available for that employee to come in here and view at any time and make edits at any time if they need to do so. So if, for example, they want to come back in here and see more about those documents that were uploaded, or check out their certifications, or anything that they may have provided in that onboarding process, they'll have the ability to come out here and see that at any point through the employee portal. And then you have an entire document library that you can expose to that employee if you choose to do so, where that employee can come in here and can search any documents that you make available to that employee, handbooks, anything like that. So you may have information that you expose to the employee in the onboarding process that you want them to kind of electronically sign off on, acknowledge receipt of, but there also may just be more reference materials, for example, that you may have available to your employees, and that's totally totally fine as well. Oops, didn't mean to go there. So we can just see if I wanted to kind of search through my document library, and I can find anything at any point, check out, the employee handbook, and come in here and electronically sign off that I've received that handbook. So all of these things have time and date stamped. So everything collected in the onboarding process and everything after the onboarding process is fully tracked and available to access at any point, again, by the employee. But you, as the employer, can see exactly what that employee's been up to. And so the big thing with that is that we want to make sure, again, that consistent process, making sure that it's easy for the employee to complete, but make sure that it's really easy also to ensure full completeness, right? I mean, making sure that that employee didn't mistakenly forget to fill out a document. And by making this the same environment where the employee goes throughout the life cycle to view their pay stub, for example, this is going to continue to pull them back to the website so they can come to the same environment to view their pay stub every week, for example. The same environment where they'll come to do all of this will be the same place where they can go to update their profile or enroll in benefits during open enrollment. So in the same environment, they can do that. We also partner with a learning management platform. I have it linked here, Learn Upon. So if you have any kind of learning needs for your employees that you want to track, you can create a lot of good educational material there through Learn Upon, and we have integration with that and a single sign-on experience so the employee can be redirected for there if there's any kind of formal annual training requirements or anything like that that you may actually want to be managing through that learning management platform. All right, so I'm going to hop back here over to the administrator side. Before I did, the one last thing that I wanted to note here, because we talked about doing pay stubs and open enrollment and all of that. The other thing to note here too, of course, is that time and attendance collection for that employee. So obviously during the onboarding process, we're just kind of introducing the employee to everything, but this same environment, if you want to utilize it this way, you can have the employee tracking their time through here, maybe all of your employees, maybe just some employees. There's a number of different ways, mobile apps and other methods for collecting that time remotely. So there's a lot of different options for tracking that time, but that can also be done through here. And of course, that feeds back into Greenshades payroll, and as well as some of the kind of other preferred payroll partners that we have, such as Dynamics GP Payroll, full integration with that for all that data flowing there. All right, oops, that's not where oh, here we go. So I ended up making it back to where I wanted to go. So just to reset, so we did kind of a quick demo. We talked a little bit about the onboarding process for that employee, kind of talking about the employee self-service portal, what that experience looks like. I noted it briefly, but the one other thing that I did want to highlight here, or I guess two things. One, when we're talking about making this data available to the employee, I definitely want to stress that the type of information that you make available to them, and then what permissions you grant them, what things you want them to be able to request edits for, is completely controllable by you and your organization. So you can kind of pick and choose, say, what do we want that experience to look like? So if you want the employees to be able to submit address changes or submit time off requests or enroll in benefits or update, fill out a new W-4, whatever it might be, all of that can be done, but then that is going to go through an approval workflow which routes through here. So we can see as a manager with a scaled down view, or in this case as an administrator, depending on who should actually be the one approving these things, all of these approvals flow through here. All of it is time and date stamped, all trackable through the audit report, so we can come in at any point and approve anything. If we have a qualifying life event, for example, that needs to get approved, we can do that. But then also just full visibility to everything going on. So viewing all the timesheets that are in progress and historical time cards, or in the case with open enrollment, again, jumping in and seeing, okay, here's our open enrollment that's already in progress. Let's take a look at who's completed, who hasn't. Maybe we want to send out a reminder. We can do all of that through the platform. The other piece that I did want to mention before we hop back over to the slide deck is the certification management. So I touched on this earlier. This it's related to the onboarding process, but certainly it can be used independently of that. So if you have certifications, if you have any type of any type of requirement that you might have for your employees, that some type of skill, vaccine license, whatever it might be that actually has an expiration date, you can set up here and track with the certification management module. So it doesn't have to be just true certifications. So you can group those however you choose. You can set those up, empower the employees to be notified, including via text, that they have something that needs to be completed. They can go out there and you can really put it on them to put in all of the issuing authority information and everything pertaining to that certification. You can put it in the hands of the employee to provide that, and then you have the opportunity to review that at any point and certainly approve that or deny that and all that, and then you'll be notified, as you likely saw here on the administrator portal. You'll be notified once that document's expiring and when it is coming due for expiration. So when we're looking at the certification dashboard, we can see, hey, we have certifications that are expiring in the next 30 days. This is a demo environment. I didn't come in here and do anything about them, so now we have 7 that are expired. But this is full visibility. So I know that's important for a lot of companies when they do have certain requirements in place for certain positions. So you can make like position controls in place to where maybe this only applies to certain groups of employees based on what position they're in. For example, that's all fully configurable. Okay, so just kind of starting to wrap things up here just slightly. So we did the walk through the demo a little bit, didn't go in depth about end to end what that onboarding process looks like, just different screens that they'll click through. Obviously, we can cover those in more detail at any point. However, it's completely configurable. And so just thinking about some of these challenges that we talked about, again, just to kind of connect the dots here a little bit. Incomplete paperwork or dated forms, right? So thinking about the onboarding process, having some method in place for making all of those required forms available to those employees to ensure that we can have that consistency. Incomplete data, right? So form validation. It's the beautiful thing about computers, right? There's some things that computers are not good at, and there's other things that computers are great at, and that is one of those things, to ensure that every field is properly completed. And the nice thing about that too is that every form that they complete, it's actually staying in the system and is actually usable later on. I always have a pet peeve when I go to the doctor's office and I fill something out on their portal, and then I come into the office, they're like, oh, we don't see it, go ahead and fill it out, this paperwork too. And I'm like, I'm just filling it out twice for no reason, and it doesn't even feel like it's going anywhere. But with this, the data sticks around and it sticks with the employee profile, so there's no double entry for anybody, which is good. Again, consistent process, so we can predefine those workflows, make it very consistent for different employee groups, keeping the data from going stale, right? Empower the employees to update that information at any time, and then avoiding the islands of information. So the communication platform, I don't think, frankly, it gets kind of touched on enough within Greenshades, but there's so many opportunities to engage with the employees through that, which is even more critical in a remote environment. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Remote, Not Distance. Not endorsing the book or anything like that, but it's a really good book, and I would recommend it, especially if you're managing employees in a remote environment. And it's really focused on that, right? How do we all shift from having office type workers primarily in an office setting to into a remote setting? And one of the things that it highlights is the importance of communication. And so in a remote environment, communication is even more critical. And so I really like to emphasize that, especially when you're dealing with the employee portal. It's a great opportunity to connect with those employees that may not necessarily have like a company email, right? So it's another opportunity to engage with those employees. So winding down here before we take a look at any remaining questions and finish up, just a couple things to touch on kind of beyond onboarding. So as we're thinking about Greenshades and we're thinking about that onboarding process, I've touched on it, but this is something that's available to the employees 24/7. I will say for me, notes here that, hey, employees can do open enrollment, and initiate 401k and that sort of thing, all through the employee portal. I myself have done, literally when when my first son was born from the hospital room, I enrolled him in the insurance through Greenshades, did all of that, directly from my laptop at that time. And I think then when my second son was born, I did a similar thing. I think at that point I did it on my phone. I'm pretty sure, but again, this is an opportunity for the employees to engage with this stuff anywhere. Again, no matter where they are, 24/7. They don't have to email or text HR or something and say, hey, I've got a question. They can go out and view that information at any point. So, and then just, overall, again, allowing those employees to grow and prosper. We're talking about the importance of how difficult it is to recruit employees right now. We talk a lot about the importance of retaining the employees that we have and maintaining a good culture, especially for employees who are remote. So I touched on Learn Upon earlier. So opportunity, we have learning management platform that we integrate with. Communication portal is a nice opportunity to post jobs and that type of thing. We have a full integration with an applicant tracking system. Jazz HR is the applicant tracking system that we are partnered with. And then just beyond that, empowering employees in general has been a really big theme for us for a while now. So access to healthcare payment assistance programs and earned wage access, some of the things like that Greenshades is participating in to try to make that employee experience as good as possible. Okay, so final poll question here that we will launch, and just a simple one: understand what people are doing within the market. So when will you next evaluate your payroll software? If you attend webinars, I see a lot of questions like this across different organizations. So certainly not unique to Greenshades. So it's always helpful to have this information. Let's see here. Just about everybody has voted. We'll give it just a couple more seconds, and that is pretty good. So we'll go ahead and close that down. I know not everybody got a chance to respond, but don't want to keep anybody here long today. So thanks again, everybody, for completing that and for completing the other polls. Always appreciate it. So now I guess I could say, wrapping up here, beyond just everything that we're talking about today, just, big picture when it comes to payroll and HR, some things to keep in mind, right? Cloud-based platform, obviously there's a lot of benefits to that. This is something that most platforms have been kind of making this transition, including a number of the different components of Greenshades. There are certainly still many legacy payroll systems that we support today that are not, cloud first, but we still of course work with those. But the payroll platform from Greenshades is definitely a cloud first platform. But the nice thing about everything that's gone on at Greenshades the last 20 years, and I've seen firsthand the last 13 years, is just the organic growth that we've had that's truly been fueled by our customers. And so every feature that we've added over the years, and anytime we've kind of moved into new areas of HR, it's always been based on feedback from our customers. It wasn't a strategic decision that was made 20 years ago to say, hey, right now we're just doing, we're going to do some electronic tax returns, but we know 10 years from now we're going to have a full employee portal, and then 10 years later we'll have a full payroll platform that supports employees, hire to retire. I think that at times we may have thought, hey, that'll be the direction that we head, but we didn't really know what the market would need. But we've had a lot of feedback, and fortunate enough to have thousands of customers over the years, and many customers who have been using us for 15 plus years that have allowed us to understand, okay, this is what's going on within the space. These are where people are struggling, and here are gaps that we can help solve. And benefits was one of those big ones, especially right around the time of Affordable Care Act coming out. We did a lot of work around that to support our customers, and it doesn't stop. It happened with COVID-19, not only on the, obviously impacted everybody personally, but on the employer side and on the payroll side, it was really complicated. There were a lot of new regulations that were passed down to help when people were in need, but they were instituted very quickly and implemented very quickly. And so, we at Greenshades were, we had to scramble to figure out, okay, well, how are we gonna make this available for customers and ensure they can get the tax credits that they deserve, and all of that. And so it's always based on what's going on in the market and what kind of feedback we're getting from our customers, and ensuring that compliance first mentality, having these automated updates in place is always critical. So ensuring that those tax rates are updated automatically, the taxes are applied to employees automatically, the reporting requirements are applied automatically, due dates and everything around the kind of the tax process that is scary for many companies to manage on their own. And typically when companies outsource payroll, it's because of that compliance concern, right? It feels easier, which is fair to say, hey, we're concerned to take this on. We don't have the resources to take this on. We're going to outsource it entirely. And our goal today is to make that process as easy as possible to allow someone to kind of have a hybrid option and say, hey, I don't want to fully outsource. I want to take advantage of the cash flow and liquidity that I get from running payroll in-house, but I want some help. I don't want to be on my own. And that's what Greenshades is trying to do. And that's what we've been doing for a number of years, and we'll continue to try to do that. Hence the compliance with confidence, whether it's taxes or the Affordable Care Act or minimum wage requirements or garnishments requirements, so many different areas where we are fortunately in a position to where we can help. So with that, we're about to close down here, but I did have some Q&A set aside. So just to answer some of these questions, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw those in the questions panel, and I'll take a moment here to address those. So there's a question here, just reading through these, and apologies, not sure if everybody sees these questions or not, so I'll just read them. But do all of your onboarding forms flow into GP? Example, the W-4, is it mapped to GP? So the short answer is yes, that is going to flow into GP. So Dynamics GP is that's where we got our start. Great Plains, and then Microsoft purchased them and kind of got under the Dynamics umbrella. So Microsoft Dynamics GP, as you all know, to the individual who asked, certainly we have a lot of familiarity with GP. So all that information when an employee completes the W-4, assuming the customer is using GP payroll, it flows back in. If they're using Greenshades for payroll and they're still using Dynamics GP as their ERP and their accounting system, it changes a little bit. So instead of the employee record and GP being the source of truth, instead of that, all the GP information gets loaded onto Greenshades, all the employee records and all that, and then that W-4, when an employee completes that W-4, it of course populates within Greenshades. The difference though between like GP payroll, for example, is that with Greenshades, we'll capture that information, but then the taxes are automatically assigned to the employee in real time as they're going through the payroll process when we're loading in those hours, depending on the employee's home address and work location. So that's all calculated in real time, including those tax rates. But again, if you're using GP payroll, absolutely that flows back. And then there was another question, just kind of differences between Learn Upon versus like certification tracking. So just to touch on that briefly, the Learn Upon platform, really neat company, based out of Ireland. Had a lot of really nice conversations with them. Was fortunate enough to work with them closely when I was leading the product team. That portal is really good for just overall kind of, and we used it internally as well. I'll mention Learn Upon. So we have, every year we have new support reps that come in, and we bring them in months beforehand to get them prepped for year end. All right, January is a crazy time. We print and mail millions of tax forms. We need extra help, right, to help our customers, and so we bring in extra folks to assist the support team, and then many of them end up staying around at Greenshades for many years. And so we've leveraged Learn Upon to put all that learning requirement in a centralized place, to where we have learning where there is material provided by Learn Upon, but we have our own documentation that we can put in there and really track their progress and make them take exams and tests and that type of thing. So it's really heavily focused on that. Whereas the certification tracking is more so not necessarily assisting the employee in gaining those certifications, more so just saying, hey, I have this, here's the issuing authority, or something like a vaccine. Obviously, that would be something that can be loaded in there as well, or any kind of driver's license, commercial driver's license, anything. So you could use them hand in hand if you were using a learning management system to kind of manage that certification and create that certification, and then that certification can be tracked within the certification tool. So hopefully that makes sense. So and then there was another question. We have a lot of rehires. So does Greenshades make all of the start and end dates available? So we do. So we have some different options on the reporting side, like when it gets into tax reporting, if we're using the hire date versus the rehire date. But we do support both of those fields, and depending on what kind of experience you're looking for, that also can impact when you have rehires. Their experience can be a little bit different for a variety of reasons. Sometimes just like if they're required to complete an I-9 or not, depending on how recently they're being rehired. But we do track both of those things. We do have specifically a hire date and a rehire date, and then those keys can be fielded for or can be leveraged for eligibility requirements such as benefits and that kind of thing. So so I look like there might be a couple more questions coming in, but just looking at the time, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But I just wanted to once again just thank everybody for your time today. I know everybody's got a lot going on. Everybody's always busy. Appreciate you taking the time to check out the webinar today. So if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. As mentioned at the top, we'll make the recording available to everyone. So we'll follow up with you to the email address that you registered for to make sure you get that information. And then, if you need any kind of additional training or a follow-up demonstration to dive into some of these topics in greater detail, or talk through maybe some of the challenges that you're having related to onboarding, or maybe something else, we'd be happy to do that. So again, thanks everyone, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thanks again for coming. Take care.